Welcome back, my friends, to the show that never ends, your daily delivery of all things Dog Pound. Browns 3D, now brought to you exclusively by the OBR streaming network. I'm your host, Jeff Lloyd. We appreciate everybody for coming on out every day. We did a short earlier today, this morning. Certainly, again, for you OBR insiders, nothing that came out today in regards to Deshaun Watson is necessarily anything new to you all. And again, if you aren't one, I suggest you be one. Certainly, pushing a great product here. There is great inside information here at the OBR, and it'd be foolish to not get your hands on it if that is your thing. So go ahead. Make sure you, of course, subscribe to the channels everywhere, certainly here on YouTube. We just continue to grow here, trying to put together you guys as much great content as we can. Certainly, as this team is certainly going through massive transition. New offensive line coach, now official today. New offensive coordinator, as we all heard yesterday, Tommy Rees. Whether it's Nick Saban, whether it's Coach Stefanski, obviously everybody's got glowing words to say about Mr. Tommy Rees. But I don't have to tell you, Browns fans, we have heard so many lovely and positive things spoken about people over the years. Proof is in the pudding. So with the short video we did earlier today, certainly kind of depressing. I know you guys love it. I love it. And, we'll try to make it a weekly thing, but we're going to cover the living daylights out of the NFL draft here. I've always been, a huge fan of the NFL offseason. My previous show was basically built on the offseason from 27 to 2018. Always did incredible off-season coverage, always did incredible off-season numbers. For me, it's just something that's been that way since I was a kid. I loved every facet of a team and how they were built and how they were assembled and, how teams handled certainly salary cap, how teams handled trading players, building a roster. So for me, yes, I love this part of the year and what was really a down season, certainly in 2024 during the regular season. For me, one of the hopes and one of the things that kept me excited was, the amount of work that was going to go into this here for 2024. Now, as we talk about, this and what I think, the Browns need, look, I think the Browns need a little bit of everything everywhere. I think certainly we know they need help at the quarterback position. The running back position is going to be fascinating to see the way it works out this season. Wide receiver, I would still like one big name in there and certainly hope for, better health for Cedric Tillman. And, I think with the other guys in that room, you see a semblance of a nice young group, hopefully looking to ascend. David Njoku, I think he needs a little help at the tight end position, certainly. The offensive line, you kind of have to view the offensive line as, 25, but you also have to have your eyes towards the future, certainly. Defensive line, look, for me, I build the defense front to back, so I will never turn down defensive linemen. Linebacker room, I kind of like the way it is. Biggest question there certainly is the health, of course, of Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah. Cornerback room, I think both, Emerson and Newsom probably stepped back a little bit, but both are under contract for 25, so we'll see the way that all works out. And, you're moving on from McCloud. Most likely not going to have Juan Thornhill. It could be a year of 3, maybe 4 safeties for the Browns brought in. But the way we handled this mock, and we did end up trading away pick number 2. Look, the Cleveland Browns may fall in love with one of these 2 quarterbacks to be the signal caller for them. And if that's the case, that's fine. I just don't think I'm there. And I think if I had to choose, I think my choice would be Cam Ward. I just don't think I'm going to get the opportunity. So I am not just going to take Shedeur Sanders at 2 for the sake of taking Shedeur Sanders at 2. My role then and how I would handle all this is I will bring in 3 quarterbacks, and hopefully between the 3 of them, I find somebody. And, maybe they're not here forever, but, we'll work on that and, just continue to monitor the position as the years go on. So in this scenario, traded down with New England, not really sure, these simulators, there's not necessarily no rhyme or reason. So certainly got a couple picks for 2026 draft, and certainly got a boatload of picks here for 2025. Abdul Carter at 4. Right now, if you ask me, I think Abdul Carter is the best player in the 2025 NFL draft. I think his tape was phenomenal this year as he made the transition from Sam linebacker, certainly, to edge player. And a lot of people wondering why that didn't happen earlier. Well, Penn State did have two edges that got drafted fairly high last year, Chop Robinson down in Miami being one of them. I hear questions and critiques about what Abdul Carter's size truly is. I got to be honest, I'm hearing things, 225, 230. I have a hard time believing that. You're not going to succeed in the Big Ten by being that lightweight of a player and trying to play an edge position. His motor and his athletic ability, you just watch this guy go. And, there are plays where quarterbacks are rolling out and you think they're even going to get the run pass option. And they get neither because Abdul Carter is just that fast. He's basically mirroring them. And you certainly saw, an example of that, in the semifinal playoff matchup. But that first step and the motor that Abdul Carter has. And when you're looking at the Browns and certainly looking at Myles Garrett, you want as close to that as you can get. And you don't always get that opportunity. And you also have to keep in mind, we can start thinking about maybe a future after Myles Garrett. The young man has been here forever. He has played Hall of Fame football for this team. Can he keep up the pace that he's currently going at? You think still going to have another couple good years in him, but it's certainly not, anything wrong to try to upgrade that pass rush. And, every time I watch it and every time I watch anything on Abdul Carter, I just keep coming back to having somebody as athletic as Myles on the field at the same time on the other side, or hell, kick Myles inside, put Abdul Carter on the outside. There's some fascinating ways that this can work. And a lot of people want to critique the Browns defense in 2024. Certainly did take a step back. That's true. That is fact. But one of the things that made them so great in 2023 is that their defensive line was so good. Their secondary didn't have to do that much. So I'll put a checker on a checker right there. Second round pick, 33 overall, and you have 2 second rounders, and the Browns have 3 third rounders in this scenario, just so everybody who's trying to keep track. I go right back to that defensive line position, and I go to Derek Harmon, defensive tackle out of Oregon, 6'5", 310. Transferred last fall from Michigan State, went out to Oregon in a move that certainly worked out great for him. Oregon had a tremendous season. Harmon was a stalwart on that defensive line. Got a chance to showcase himself on one of the top teams in the country in the regular season this year. Really, really had a nice year. Oregon has got a nice crop of players, and you're going to hear a couple more names from that school go in this mock draft that we're doing here. Dalvin Tomlinson, you think he could be here, but a case could be made where maybe somehow, some way they move on. Dalvin wants to move on. Certainly something that can happen. I still have a lot of faith in Mike Hall. Unfortunately, we know for Mike, it's going to be, it's not necessarily going to be an off season of progression and honing and improving your game for Mike Hall. It's going to be an off season of rehab for Mike Hall. Tough situation in B, certainly, but I still think the future is bright. Juwan Briggs, once they finally got him on the field, and I don't know why they weren't listening to me earlier in the year, I think Juwan Briggs showed really well, and it kind of seemed almost a little silly that the Browns waited that long to, get him in there. We all knew the season was over a lot sooner than the Browns started acting like the season was over. But I bring in Derek Harmon, and if I have Tomlinson or I don't, and if I don't, I'm looking in free agency. A name, if the Browns are going to pursue a defensive tackle in free agency that I am extremely excited about, will be Milton Williams from the Philadelphia Eagles. Having a strong year. He's played with good players, certainly. With Carter and Davis out in Philly, there is no way with Carter and Davis, players that are both on first-round contracts and most likely players that are going to stick around in Philly, they are going to be able to keep Milton Williams. My eyes are on Milton Williams. Would be a fantastic addition as well to this Browns defensive line. But if I have Harmon, I have Hall, and I have Briggs, I have a nice nucleus at the defensive tackle position for years to come. And, look, that's where for me it starts. It starts on your defensive line in the NFL, because if teams can't run and the quarterback's constantly getting pressured, it certainly leads to the offense having problems against said defense. So first round, Abdul Carter. First pick of the second round, Derek Harmon, University of Oregon. Now, this is where it kind of goes, and I know a lot of people have questions about the offense, and rightfully so. And this is where this mock draft picks up some steam here for the Browns on the offensive side of the football. We have question at left tackle. And, DeJuan Jones, unfortunately, rehabbing again as well. DeJuan, Mike have a relationship, both former Buckeyes. But, so at least maybe they'll have each other to lean on. And, as this offseason goes, they can have each other to kind of lean on, former collegiate teammates, friends, somebody else you can lean on during the rehab process. But I'm going to bring in a tackle. And at pick 37, Josh Connerly Jr., left tackle, Oregon. A few years ago was the top-rated high school player in the state of Washington. Stayed somewhat close to home by going to Oregon. Got some run as a freshman, and then was the starting left tackle for the past 2 seasons for the Oregon Ducks. 6'5", 314, 315. I'll be honest, you put Josh Connerly and Derek Harmon next to each other, these guys almost kind of look identical. Same build. At 6'5", they are not, heavy. They look more athletic at 6'5", 315. But Josh Connerly has some nice tape at the University of Oregon. It certainly gives the Browns options here as they see what goes on with DeJuan Jones. And certainly, again, when you are building this offensive line and any positional group, at least for me, I am looking for a today in that room. And I am also kind of looking at it tomorrow in that room. So Josh Connerly and say DeJuan Jones, everything goes great. He's in the best shape of his life. Come August, takes over, and it's his left tackle job. And until he proves he can't keep it, that's fine. That's fine. I still have Josh Connerly as a perfectly good swing tackle and a future certainly at the right side, for Jack Conklin. Pick 67. I'm getting close to starting to get some favorites in this draft class. I'm getting very, very close. And I think at the running back position for me, and it always hasn't gone well in Columbus for Travion Henderson. Certainly dinged up. Never really an opportunity where, Trayvon Henderson could just get the load. Certainly that was not going to happen this year when you brought Quinshon Judkins up from the South. It was going to be a committee type approach. Right now, Travion Henderson is probably playing his best ball of his life at Ohio State. The play to close out the half, certainly in the semifinal. You see size with Travion Henderson. He's got an NFL build already. Very, very willing blocker and very, very solid blocker in pass pro. The receiving game, screen game, we're seeing that already. Everything you want a running back to do. And these are always a lot of the questions, with draft talk and draft running backs, becoming rookie running backs. Can they do a little bit of everything? Because if these guys, you have questions, the development is slow. The development can get blocked. If you can't pass pro as a running back in the NFL, you're a one-trick pony, and you're basically just an absolute tell to the opposing defense when you're on the field. They're either going to throw you the ball or they're going to give you the ball, right? If you don't trust you to pass pro, it's one of two things. So you key in on said guy and take care of it. The fact that Travion Henderson has not had a major workload certainly could be a question. There's no doubt about that. But if you're the Browns, and again, there could be the possibility that there could be life without Nick Chubb. Even if Nick Chubb is still here, you remember Nick was always in that sweet spot. It was 18 carries, 19 carries, right in that sweet spot. They never gave him any more. But you have to think at his age, and certainly all the things he's coming off of, that, that number ideally would be lower. So, as much as, I love Travion Henderson, I do think, you haven't seen the major workload certainly causes some concern for you when you are giving an NFL evaluation for him. But if I am going to be able to keep him in that same type of number role, touch role, or increase it a little bit, I think I have great confidence in the success I can get from TreVeyon Henderson. Again, I'm starting to get some favorites in this class. And TreVeyon Henderson, for me, is a very, very, very solid player. So that was pick 67, TreVeyon Henderson. That takes us to pick 68. Now, I think one of the guys, and this is who I originally had in this mock, and I'm in love with him, is Matthew Golden from the University of Texas. I thought, everybody all year long, every time you turned on Texas, you heard, pregame, early in the game, Isaiah Bond. And I think he's going to have a role in the NFL, Isaiah Bond. There's a couple of warts I personally don't like with his game. I think he tracks the ball poorly. I think he jumps when he most certainly should not be jumping. Things that kind of tell you the tale on that. And he ain't a big enough guy to be putting himself in the air to getting in the point where he is going to absorb contact. Straight speed guy, a guy that typically would say, oh, he'd work in Kansas City, that type. So I don't think, and the thing with Matthew Golden is he has just put together so much impressive tape vertically, which is, me when I talk about the Coach Stefanski offense, the best version of it, the best it looks is when the Browns can play that wide zone and then start taking shot plays or working play action off the wide zone. And that's where I think a guy like Matthew Golden can contribute. Question I have now is Matthew Golden in a shallow wide receiver class going to be around at pick 68? I'm not sure. If he's not, I put in a substitution here, possibly Jaden Higgins out of Iowa State. NFL body, complete NFL body. You see Judy a little bigger, contributing in this offense the way he did this last year. Cedric Tillman, when he finally got the opportunity, bigger body, the way he was able to contribute for this team this year. Certainly some guys I continue to like that I think could fit. So if I cannot get me a Matthew Golden, Jaden Higgins, a guy who'll be down at Mobile for the Senior Bowl, is a guy I'm looking forward to. Drafted a quarterback, and I'm sure most of you are not going to like it. Kyle McCord. Again, I understand Kyle McCord's time in Columbus didn't go so great. I understand, young man got frustrated, but went to Syracuse and absolutely just tore it up. And from all intents and purposes, cleaned himself up, got himself right in his mind. A good friend of mine, Jim Coburn. I know Pete Smith and I both a big fan of Jim Coburn's work. It's a lot of data, analytic data, and whether you like Kyle McCord or not, in his scope, and Jim's scope is pretty tried and true and tested now for years. Kyle McCord fits pretty well under the analytic data. So Browns signed 2, draft 1, and I think Kyle McCord, I think a lot of people thinking at pick 93, that's probably a little high. And I get it. I do. But again, some of these positions, certainly quarterback, certainly wide receiver, where it is just not a deep bunch, you're going to hear these names go sooner than they should. Don't be surprised. They're important positions. Teams starve and basically fight. And, their future is built on getting these positions right. So they got to take shots. Even if it's a little earlier than you would. You need quarterbacks. You need wide receivers to have success in this league. I've talked a little bit the last couple of days that I think sometimes, and I think maybe this is one thing that got the Browns in a little bit of trouble the last couple of years. And it's not that they don't draft well, and I know a lot of people think they don't draft well, which is, you got to look at some of these guys that they've drafted, the amount of time they spend in the NFL. Not every draft pick hits, but I mean, when you're talking, you've had guys, 5th, 6th round that ride out an entire rookie contract. That's pretty good drafting. That is pretty good drafting. Now, I'm going to add a tight end, and I think the Browns have, in the last couple of years, have missed some opportunities. There were running backs available last year. I know I'm in the minority. Everybody thought the class overall stunk. It wasn't a great class. But on day 3, you certainly had talent to bring in that could have helped this team last year. Tight end, I feel the same way the last 2 years. I felt there were tight ends to be had. I also feel it was just something the Browns, for whatever reason or another, did not choose to enter the party. Mason Taylor, son of Jason, nephew of Zach Thomas from LSU. Really good tight end in this class. Maybe there's other years where it'd go a little bit higher, but you have a top two here in Loveland and certainly Tyler Warren. You know, David Njoku, the thing with David Njoku is you can accept and understand that time is going to be missed. It's just the way it works. Players get hurt in football. But I think when David Njoku is not available for the Browns, you notice just how valuable David Njoku is. What he can do over the middle, the fact that, you know, you really can't cover him with a linebacker because they can't run with him. Defensive backs are just too small. Mason Taylor gives you some of that. Certainly gives you some of that. And so on, you know, a week where maybe David's not 100% or on a week where David's out, I need more than Jordan Akins. I'm sorry. I just do. Continuing on. So, you know, to this point, what you have is Abdul Carter at number 4, 33, Derek Harmon, 37, Josh Connerly, 67, Travion Henderson, 68, Matthew Golden / Jaden Higgins, Kyle McCord at 93, number 103 overall. Obviously, Mason Taylor, son of Hall of Famer Jason Taylor, and nephew of Hall of Famer Zach Thomas. Now, we get to day 3, and, you know, day 3 is what wins you a draft. Day 3 is what can make a difference for your team in any given season. Getting guys that most likely you brought in, and everything is going to be, you know, can we improve him in the year? Can he get a little bigger? Can he get a little faster? Can he get a little stronger? When you're talking day 3, there's usually questions, obviously, right? You know, unless somebody had some major issues that you were now gambling on them on day 3. Otherwise, they would have gone higher, correct? Right. So, you know, you're going to find guys that are, you know, not going to be starters. Can they develop into a starter, which is great? Can they be role players? You know, nickel, dime, defensive players, extra wide receivers, you know, extra offensive linemen that you'll put on the field when you need a yard on 3rd and 1. You know, so all that stuff, like you're looking at like types of roles. I'm going to take a linebacker in this draft, even though I like the way the room is currently set, and I would bring back Devin Bush. But again, you know, until I know what's going on with Jeremiah Usu-Koromoa, certainly have my questions. Smael Mondon Jr. out of Georgia, played 4 seasons down there at Georgia, and obviously played in the absolute, you know, mecca of success for the University of Georgia Bulldogs. Willing linebacker, good in a run, enough athletic ability that he shows that he can be a factor in coverage. 3 interceptions, 1 season down there for Georgia. You know, will be able to play special teams. Again, you know, this is a big question mark with that linebacker room as far as the overall health of Jeremiah Usu-Koromoa, and we have no timetable on it. So, you know, just from based on what we know now, it's something that, you know, certainly needs to be looked at. There's no question about it. Deuce Chestnut out of cornerback, nickel, can play some safety out of Syracuse. First off, just love the name, Deuce Chestnut, fun player. Really active player, finds a way around the ball. For those of you who know, you know, the draft work that I've done with Pete Smith over the years, we always talk about our defensive backs, and we want the jerks. We want the pricks. We want the guys that the guys that won't shut up, the guys that are okay, you know, getting a little chippy. You know, those are the guys I love because I think they breathe life into defenses. So to have a guy like that or two is always one that I like. So certainly Deuce Chestnut would come in, and we'll see. It's going to be an interesting year because if the Browns really want to go high end opposite Denzel Ward, how does that work with Greg Newsome and Martin Emerson here, both under contract? So cornerback certainly has its own storyline for the way it's going to work out for the Browns this offseason. Donovan Edwards, it just all the talent of the world. All the talent of the world. But you look at these career at Michigan, and nothing ever really came to anything. And, you know, I'll I'll take 2 running backs in what is an amazingly deep running back class. A lot of that certainly has to do with what's going to go on with Nick Chubb. Certainly, Jerome Ford still here one more year. But you tell me a guy like Donovan Edwards in a really deep running back class could be around, late day 3. That's something I can't ignore. And that's where this running back class is at. There will be good running backs to be had in the 6th round, maybe even the 7th. So certainly something for everybody to keep their eyes on in regards to that. So, again, for the Browns, in a deep running back class in this draft, there would be a chance for them to make some significant changes in that room and get that room really, really cheap and playable at that cheap number for a few years. So certainly, interesting as well. Last 2 picks here, both of these guys age-wise might not fit. So, these guys could be here as prospective late day 3 picks, certainly could be guys identified as, undrafted free agents. Josh Prague out of Michigan, transferred into Michigan this year. You remember everybody watching the combine last year? What did they keep talking about? Michigan has 6 offensive linemen here. Michigan has 6 offensive linemen here, right? Well, they certainly had to fill some holes up at Michigan this past year. Prague came over from Northwestern, was a starting guard for this team for the entire season. 3rd team, all Big Ten. Going to be 24 in the summer. I get it. So ideally, maybe you have a little more interest in him as a UDFA as opposed to a drafted player. But certainly a guy that can help this team, can contribute for this team. And we know Joel ain't going to play forever. As much as we would love Joel around for one more year, it's all on Joel. Wyatt. Only reason Wyatt's young is because he's playing with Joel Bitonio. To be honest, that's really the only reason you think that Wyatt Teller is somewhat young. He's getting older as well, certainly. You certainly have Zinter in here. You're going to look for what's going to be your backup center. You certainly hope we get a little better, luck here in year 3 from the young man, New Jersey kid, through Ohio State. He's had a rough 2 years for this team, but you certainly maybe year 3 he gets that opportunity. And then final selection, spent a couple years, Texas kid, spent a couple years out of Kansas State, then transferred into Oregon. Again, a little bit older, could be a guy, very much, not as old as DeAnthony Bell, but that type of guy that could be somebody that you could get as an undrafted free agent and could certainly stick to the roster. Kobe Savage, no interceptions this past year at Oregon, past 2 years. In Kansas State, 3 interceptions each year. Just another guy that played in big time games, though. And you look at most of this and you look at where these players played. Carter, Abdul Carter, first selection, went to the playoffs. Your 3 Buckeyes, Harmon, Connerly, and Savage, all college football playoffs with Oregon. Travion Henderson, playoffs with Oregon. You want these guys who have been battle tested. Donovan Edwards, obviously what he did certainly last year with the Michigan Wolverines. This is for me, it's shaping up that I really like this draft class. For the Browns, it is absolute murder. And I mean murder. That they are in such quarterback purgatory that this is the year they're going to have to try to start digging it out. It's just not good. Just not good at all. We saw Sam Darnold certainly, the last 2 weeks, and unfortunately for him, the game kind of fell apart, after what was such a nice run for him. But also do keep this in mind with Sam Darnold. The Minnesota Vikings played the last place schedule this season, and they had 9 games against teams who finished in last place in 2023. They went 9-0 in those games. So yeah, they stuck around and fought with some of the good teams, but they've really cleaned up against, some of the doormats of the NFL. Also keep in mind, the Cleveland Browns will play the last place schedule in 2025. So just to recap real quickly before we close it out here, first round selection in a trade down, Abdul Carter, Penn State. Love him, in my opinion, the best player in this draft. Basically a tag team of just big bad boys out of Oregon. Derek Harmon, Josh Connolly, both 6'5", both north of 310 pounds, both athletic big fellas. Travion Henderson. I would like Matthew Golden. I don't think it's going to happen at 68 anymore, so we'll take Jaden Higgins out of Iowa State. Kyle McCord. I'm probably in this battle alone. It's not the first time I've fought for a guy by myself, and it certainly will not be the last. Mason Taylor, tight end out of LSU. Smile Mondon Jr. out of Georgia, had a nice, quiet, but productive career in Georgia. A lot of headline players on that Georgia defense. Mondon could be someone that comes in and gives you, 5-6 year career of some solid linebacker play. Deuce Chestnut out of Syracuse, just a fun all-around defensive player, certainly with some special teams ability. Donovan Edwards, if a running back of that caliber is going to be there late day 3, you're foolish to not take him. Josh Prebe, interior lineman, University of Michigan, and then Kobe Savage, safety from Oregon. First of many. Look, we're just getting some names out there now, starting to get familiar with this class and getting in a little bit deeper. But this right here, this would be an absolute home run. And I actually joked when I put the tweet out that I probably won't do another mock draft anytime soon, which is lying because I've probably already done like 4 today anyway. Stick around. You'll have Barry tonight, and you will have Fred tonight. If you didn't check out the React last night with Pete and Brad, fantastic job from those guys. Covered a billion topics, so make sure you check that out. We're just trying to keep you guys some great content rolling week in, week out here on the OBR streaming devices and the streaming channels. We appreciate everybody for the support. I'm glad to be here. I'm glad to be a part of this. It'll be me to start your night, and then plenty of great stuff after I finish. As always, this has been your daily delivery of all things Dog Pound. Browns 3D exclusively on the OBR. We appreciate you all. Make sure you subscribe, and we'll talk to you tomorrow.